Hey, this is Sanyam Bhutani, and you're listening to Chai Time Data Science, a podcast for data science enthusiasts where I interview practitioners, researchers, and cagglers about their journey, experience, and talk all things about data science. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chai Time Data Science Show. In this episode, I interview Suzana Ilić, who's currently a PhD student in the domain of NLP and also the co-founder and director of Machine Learning Tokyo. In this interview, we discuss about Suzana's journey into machine learning and how she discovered her passion for machine learning and NLP. We also discuss all about her efforts to democratize AI through her awesome community efforts, which I'm sure need no introduction. We talk about Machine Learning Tokyo community, how community building can help you take away many skill sets or personal growth aspects. Suzana shares her journey as the co-founder of Machine Learning Tokyo. We also discuss an important topic that I am sad hasn't been discussed as heavily on this podcast about inclusivity in AI, in community, fostering an environment that encourages beginners while also being inclusive to a huge extent. Machine Learning Tokyo has been a platform for open science, open education, and open project development. We discuss about all of these three aspects, including the projects, research, and the education that has come out of it. So I think that definitely makes this one of the very unique interviews on the series. Without further ado, here's my interview with Suzana Ilić, all about democratizing AI, community building, and fostering inclusive environments in machine learning communities. Please enjoy the show. Hi everyone, today it's an honor for me to be talking to a great community creator, supporter, and practitioner, Suzana Ilić. Suzana, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Before we talk about your amazing work in democratizing AI through the community efforts and all of your amazing work, I'd like to talk about your journey. You followed a traditional path, if I may, in academia, in NLP. What made you interested in machine learning and NLP? Why did you pick NLP? I think it was right around the time when the computer vision boom was happening. Why go with NLP?
So, yeah, I did follow a traditional path in academia from undergrad to PhD. I'm a trained linguist, so I always worked with language data and text, and it was kind of the natural path for me to go. Well, first I have to say that I never felt like I needed to any of these titles for any kind of job or anything. I just loved learning new things, and the university allowed me to do that. So it's kind of a safe space for me just to experiment and explore a lot of things. So I was always working with language data, and I was working with very simple text analysis tools and methods. And while I was doing my master's, I realized that these kind of simple tools, like lexicon-based tools, they give us like some useful information about data sets and corpora. So, but as a linguist, I was looking at the data. So back then, during my master's, I was working on Twitter data during the presidential elections in Austria in 2016. So in the political discourse analysis, and I was really interested in analyzing, the things that people say during presidential elections. And as a linguist, I was looking at the data, I realized, okay, these simple tools, they give us some understanding or some useful information about a data set, but they're not able to handle like the complexity and the ambiguity of language. And language, especially in this kind of controversial domains like politics, figures of speech, of super interesting stuff like humor and sarcasm and irony and metaphors and analogies. So I needed to find something that is able to handle these kind of complexities and ambiguities. And it kind of led me to reading about machine learning and neural networks. And I got hooked like right away. And I knew this is exactly what I needed and what I wanted to do. So I finished my master's. I started writing my first machine learning code 3 years ago, started my PhD in the kind of same field. So I'm always working in sentiment analysis, emotion recognition. And I was very lucky because, first of all, I'm a PhD student at the University of Innsbruck in Austria, but I'm based in Japan for a few years now. And my supervisors from both linguistics and computer science are super supportive. And I was lucky because right after I started my PhD, I got my first visiting research position in Japan at the National Institute of Informatics. So they allowed me to work on deep learning for effective computing. And I was working there with researchers from ETH Zurich and the University of Tokyo. And I think that made all the difference in the world to have this mentorship and collaboration and the opportunity to do research with a non-standard background. So yeah, I think that's the reason why I'm doing what I do. And NLP is kind of the natural thing. So I'm a linguist. I always worked with language. So yeah.
Awesome. Why did you follow the traditional research path? Why did you decide to sign up for a PhD? Were you always drawn to science, experimentation, research?
Definitely. I think it's always been part of my life. Yeah, as I mentioned, I love the university. It's my safe space. I would probably never leave. But yeah, as I mentioned, I don't know. It's just a lot of fun, and it's also very cross-disciplinary. I've been deep diving into many different fields, from psychology to computer science. I've been working on multidisciplinary projects. So it's just a lot of fun for me. That's pretty much it. And that being said, as I mentioned before, I don't think it's by any means necessary to have a PhD. It's just fun.
Okay. Can you tell us, what does a day in your life currently look like? Although you're close to finishing your PhD, so it might not be the ideal scenario, but if you could give us a peek into your current day, like.
So hopefully I'll be finishing soon.
I'm sure it'll be very soon.
No, it's boring. It's pretty boring. I'm typically just spending 4 to 5 hours on reading and writing and wrapping up some experiments and writing some more code. And then I do spend like at least 4 to 5 hours, maybe a bit more, on MLT, on our projects, on meetings.
Every day?
On a lot of stuff.
Every day? 4 or 5 hours on MLT? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. In hindsight, why did you start Machine Learning Tokyo? What was the motivation behind it?
So when we started back in July 2017, and we basically started just as 2 people. It was me and Yuvraj, and we met every Saturday, 9 a.m. And then that was back then at the Yahoo Lodge here in Tokyo, an open co-working space. And we just wanted to learn about machine learning, and we wanted to write code. So we just met and followed the tutorial, and then afterwards, after training some models, we discussed together. For me, I was working in NLP, so I needed like to kind of find ways to progress faster. And I kind of always believe that you can learn much faster if you're collaborating and working with other people who know things that you don't know. And you learn from each other. And for Yuvraj, it was kind of the same. So he was super into robotics and still is. So he wanted to get into machine learning for robotics. And it's funny because every week, like more and more people joined. And after a few weeks, we just couldn't fit them all on one table anymore. So, and when we decided to host our first kind of deep learning meetup. A few months later, there were more than 100 people, I think. So yeah, it was pretty fun. But it started out as a study group of 2 people.
Did you expect it to be at the stage at which it is right now, or has it like totally surpassed your expectations?
I did not expect that. No, not at all. I did not expect that, and it was very unlike. First of all, we're foreigners in Japan. We don't speak Japanese. It's me. My Japanese is not that good. I have a non-standard background, and we were just meeting up for fun and writing machine learning code. But it turned out that what we needed for ourselves, like to learn about this technology that is changing basically everything we know, a lot of other people wanted to learn more about as well. And it kind of, yeah, it's pretty surprising like how it grew from these 2 people just write code to, I think today we're about 4,500 members in Tokyo. We're an official non-profit Ipanchadan Hojin in Japan. We're supported by an amazing company, by Taizo-san, one of the great visionaries in Japan, and his company Mistletoe Japan. They're supporting like entrepreneurs, startups, and nonprofits that do things a bit differently. I think we're definitely a bit weird and a bit different. So yeah, all the way to all the amazing projects that we did, the work that we presented all over the world. So no, I did not expect that.
Out of all of these amazing things that you just mentioned, is there anything that you're really proud of that MLT as a community has achieved?
So I think what I'm really proud of is the community. It's not something that we achieved, but the community as such, because so first of all, like those people are super smart, obviously, but they're also so like kind and generous. They have all full-time jobs, right? So yep. They're all like even senior engineers and senior researchers at the Japanese companies and universities, but they still find time like to work on open education, to teach others, to work on projects in the field of AI for social good, to work on projects from research all the way to production level machine learning. So as I mentioned before, we presented our work in all over the world, in San Francisco, in Vancouver at NeurIPS last year. And for me, like I'm proud to see the team succeed, and I'm very happy that the community is doing such an amazing job.
Awesome. So MLT, I think, is one of the very rare communities that just doesn't promote education, but also projects and research. Can you tell us more about the projects and research that I know it's awesome, but for the audience who might not be aware, can you speak to the projects and research that has been coming out of MLT?
Yeah. So for us, like the events that we do, like the workshops, the educational part is of course super important, but what we are known for, like from day one, basically, is that we love to build stuff. So we love to write code and to work on stuff. And last year, we started working on a few projects. So just to give you kind of an idea, one of our projects, a team, I think of 15 people, software engineers, hardware engineers, machine learning engineers are working on Edge AI. So we love like kind of the hardware component when thinking about machine learning. And we work on different things. So one of the projects within the field of Edge AI is working on an open source robotic system for agricultural tasks. So that was super fun. We're still working on that. And because things are like so interesting and a lot of people came up with great ideas, we decided to kick off an open Edge AI lab once a month, so people can get together. We provide a ton of hardware from Raspberry Pis to Jetson Nanos and other stuff. So people can experiment and explore and deploy models on hardware, on edge devices, on microcontrollers. So this has been super fun. And then also we've been doing a lot of different projects in NLP, for example, because of my own interest and background. So we worked on a sequence-to-sequence chatbot and deployed it in the browser. We worked on, most recently, on GANs for creative text generation. So we generated some like fun metaphors and poems and lyrics that we presented last year at NeurIPS, at a NeurIPS workshop. We had a poster there. So lots of kind of fun projects that we're working on. Yeah.
Okay, I think it also speaks to the passion aspect. I remember I think it was during the unfortunate floods in Japan. Still, everyone came together and they were so passionate. They continued working on the edge projects.
Yeah, exactly.
How can we create such passionate environments, such welcoming environments for beginners who might feel intimidated by these projects?
That's a good question. So first of all, I think that it's important to do things that you kind of like and believe in. And for us, like all the projects that we've been working on have had some component that benefits the public or the community. So it's a very open-minded, open source, open education mindset. And I think a lot of people just love to work on these kind of things. It's just a lot of fun. And the second thing is we're really trying. I'm not sure if we completely succeed in that, but we're trying to be as inclusive as possible, like to really welcome people from all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of experience levels, and with all kinds of skill sets. Because first of all, I think that diverse teams are ultimately performing better. As I mentioned earlier on, right? It's like when you're collaborating, you're with different people, you're gonna learn much more and much faster. So I love that kind of aspect of having diverse teams, from beginner to expert, with different kinds of specializations and skill sets. And so one of our like more concrete example of how we try to be as inclusive as possible is our math reading sessions. So we do, you know that very well. Yes. Because you've been there a few times. So we do bi-weekly math reading sessions, math for machine learning. And we really welcome people from all kinds of backgrounds, and it's remote, so it's also including like a lot of people from all over the world. And the good thing about this is that the reading group is so diverse in terms of experience level. So we have from beginners, and I count myself as a beginner as well as in math, all the way to mathematicians with PhDs in applied math. We have really amazing math experts and mentors like Emil and Jason and Mrityunjay and Jared. Mrityunjay, who's based in India, by the way. And they are so encouraging. Like they create this really encouraging environment, and they really ask people, okay, go ahead and ask questions. Like everything that you do not understand, use the Slack channel and use our discussion time to ask as many questions as possible. And they're trying to come up with very intuitive and simple explanations for some mathematical operations that we go through. And the thing is, we develop sort of very interesting discussions and brainstorm and come up with ideas. And it's a really kind of fun and interactive learning environment. So these are kind of, and it's challenging for everyone, and it's fun for everyone. So yeah, this is one thing that we're trying to be as inclusive as possible. But I also think that there are so many communities out there that are doing such an amazing job in being like inclusive and trying to also support really from beginner level. So, and like fast AI, I mean, Jeremy Howard and Rachel Thomas have been doing like the best job ever. I think they have such a great impact, I think, on the community. But also Kaggle. Kaggle is a great platform for beginners. There's the Kaggle Noobs community.
Yeah.
So all those communities, they have different ways of being inclusive and from kind of all experience levels. But you know better than I do. What do you think like about Fast AI and Kaggle? How do they manage like to be so inclusive?
I think to give you an example of, and as I've gotten to know you through MLT, it really speaks to how the person at the core, for example, at MLT, you're this really kind and welcoming person. The same applies to Fast AI and Kaggle. Also, great Kagglers, they don't have this huge air as you might expect around them. CPMP, who's number one on the discussions, who I've been fortunate to interview 3 times, but he doesn't, if you interact with him on the forums, he's not this really strict, proud guy who's number one, but he's rather a very welcoming, very uh, informative person who keeps sharing ideas on the forums. And I think it also applies to Fast AI, where even every single person who comes onto the forums is treated as a future great deep learning practitioner and not as a student. So I think it's that culture that really fosters, and it's passed on to the next generation, also the next generation of learners.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Now, I also want to discuss another aspect of MLT. I know some awesome research has been coming out of MLT. Did you expect published research coming out of a community? Because that's something that's completely unheard of. And if you could maybe share your favorite one or two that has come out recently.
Yeah. We were surprised ourselves. So we've been working on this, on a few projects last year, and some of the research projects, just simply because I'm still like PhD student, and writing papers is still part of my everyday life, I guess. And for me, it was kind of a decision that I made 1.5 years ago. I said that I want to do less of kind of these events and talks and focus more on projects and doing research. And back then I didn't think about like publishing research. I was just thinking about doing open research in combination with open source. So we started working on NLP, on the creative text generation one a while back. And at some point we kind of realized, okay, maybe it would be a good way to kind of try to publish, because it forces you to think about it in a different way, and to create very high quality output. So that was a really good goal for the whole team, I think. So personally, like when I do projects, I try to define the output or the goal as concrete as possible, because it makes like execution, I think, a lot easier. So we had the goal to publish, but yeah, it just it would have been like a dream, like to really publish. So we didn't really kind of think about, okay, this could have been really published. Anyway, and in the fall we started working on a different thing, which was the agricultural edge devices, where we ran deep learning models on edge devices, and both were perfectly, I think, a perfect fit for 2 workshops at NeurIPS last year. So one was machine learning for the developing world, and what we did was basically we showed that running machine learning on edge devices can have a lot of benefits for developing countries, that they have a lot of constraints in terms of resources and infrastructure. And when you agriculture is such a huge source of income and food production for developing countries still. So there need to be like solutions where these things can be optimized and made easier for developing countries, I think. And this is what we've been mainly working on the edge AI, from the edge AI perspective. And the other one was where we worked on GANs for generating creative text. And they got into the workshop, machine learning for creativity and design. And it was funny because Asir, who was there for the poster session, he said, well, he was standing there literally surrounded by Google Brain people and Facebook AI people who had their posters. And then there's us, like, so it's unreal, right? But it's possible. It's definitely possible. And there's like a few super interesting, like independent research collectives coming up, like most recently. There's one that popped up on Twitter, like the AI Night Research Collective. I hope they're going to do great things. So if people are interested in independent research, I think there's definitely ways like to do machine learning research or applied ML research. And finding the right community and the right people to work with is, I think, key.
Okay. I think it also speaks to the aspect of being very inclusive, like you said about the agricultural projects. It wouldn't have been possible if you wouldn't have included someone who was interested in those aspects, and unlike any hacker who's just interested in posting the most efficient code on Reddit or the most hacky project on Reddit. So I think that's also where inclusivity comes into the picture.
Definitely.
Now, I'm also curious about the efforts. I'm sure we were just talking about this. A lot of efforts go into MLT, all of the organization part that you're involved in. How do you balance this time with your research and other work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wish I would have good advice for that or a good answer for that. I don't. I'm trying to manage my time as good as possible, especially like since MLT started becoming like bigger and bigger and more of an organization than a community. It involves like so many different tasks, and it's not that easy, unfortunately. I kind of work too much, I think, and maybe I'm not a good role model for that. But at least I can say that it's a lot of fun. So I love working on my PhD. It's not something that is stressing me out. I love working on MLT stuff. Again, it's just a lot of fun for me. But then you have also like things that are more challenging, more difficult. So I'm trying to balance things. I think the only thing that I can say is that good time management, and I'm using an app. It's kind of a meditation app,
Okay.
but I'm not meditating. It's just kind of a breathing exercise. So you kind of follow a sound. And I do that every day for a few minutes, and that kind of helps to, I think, or at least it helps me to focus, so to be very, very focused and to be balanced, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. In hindsight, do you feel putting all of these efforts into the community has given you any personal or professional skills and growth?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. So I think I'm just an MLT member like anyone else. And that means that you get to deep dive into cutting edge tech. And I learned to not be afraid of it. So I learned to kind of be comfortable with the uncomfortable, especially like me, like coming from different backgrounds, and started working on edge devices is like absurd. And it's super intimidating, right? You're comparing yourself like with experts and professionals, and it's, it's uncomfortable, and you're slow, and you feel like you're stupid. You don't understand a lot of things. but I think that's totally fine. And I do want to I kind of want to convey that message that all these things are a lot of fun. So there is no need, like, there is no need to compare yourself to other people or to feel like inferior or to feel like you don't understand things. It's just part of the process. Everybody feels that way at some point. And also the good thing is that, as you mentioned before, when you were talking about the Kaggle expert, so the good thing about these communities is that people are just so open and so kind, and they're going to welcome you. It doesn't really matter what kind of background you have. So I would really encourage everyone to join a community and to be part of it, even though you might be a beginner, even though you might come from a different background. I think now is the best time to get into tech if you're starting out.
I think that also really speaks to the aspect of contributing and helping others, which in different ways would also come back to you in knowledge or in personal growth. I personally am a bad public speaker, but I try to give a few talks here and there at meetups. I think it's really helpful. It also helps you grow in maybe personal aspect. I don't think I have, but you might become a better speaker, or you might become a better tech person as well in terms of skills.
For sure. And you know that better than anyone, because when you joined Kaggle, you have also joined the community, and it made you a Kaggle grandmaster, right? So
I'm not a grandmaster. I'm a triple expert.
You're not?
I'm not.
Yes, exactly. Sorry about
Yeah, no problem. So, how can someone from the outside, maybe someone from the audience who's not from Tokyo, how can we support MLT?
Yeah, so I think we started doing like more and more remote sessions. So it's very easy to join study sessions and study groups and other kinds of meetups remotely. We're trying to balance it out with different time zones, especially for the math readings. And there's like many different ways how to contribute. So we do a lot of open source projects. So all of these things are not necessarily bound to Tokyo. We have about, I think, 40 to 50 active contributors who are working on open education, who teach deep learning. We held things like, we held a deep learning workshops just recently at Kaggle Days here in Tokyo. We were working together with the Earth Life Sciences Institute at Tokyo Institute of Technology, where we held a machine learning bootcamp for researchers from different backgrounds. And so there's a lot of ways how people can get involved in open education, in open source projects that are not necessarily bound to Tokyo. And I think the best way would be just to join maybe Meetup or Slack and get in touch with the community and try to figure out, okay, what are the things that people are working on and what are the things that you might be super interested in, and then go from there.
Okay. So this has been an interview full of great advices. If you were to give one final best advice to someone who feels intimidated to contribute to open source or start the machine learning journey, what would be your best advice?
So I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think now is the best time to get into machine learning. The community is super open. We have so many mentors and experts that are very welcoming. And there are like a lot of different open source projects that always need different perspectives and different people helping out and contributing, raising issues or contributing code. So I think there's no need to be intimidated. It's just, in machine learning or in tech in general, I think it's part of the job to always learn new things and to always be, confronted with things you might not understand at the beginning. But you'll see that that's fine. And I like not only because I'm leading MLT, but because there are so many amazing communities out there that we discussed, like Fast AI and Kaggle and many others, like Women in Machine Learning and Data Science. So there are so many communities out there that are supportive and encouraging. And by joining one of them and collaborating with other people, learning from other people, and also at some point be a mentor to someone else and help someone else as well, is, I think, key. And this is exactly like collaboration, I believe, is exactly what makes progress happen.
Awesome. Suzana, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. And on behalf of the community, thank you so much for all of your contributions to the community.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to give it a review or feel free to shoot me a message. You can find all of the social media links in the description. If you like the show, please subscribe and tune in each week to Chai Time Data Science.